Welcome to Florence, a city as touristy as it is magical. And so before we dive deep into Tuscany and really get out into those hidden gems, I'd be remiss if we didn't check out the amazing museums here first. So come with me today as we do our best to avoid the tour groups and experience some real Florentine culture. I probably should also address the cathedral in the square, and that is the fact that I'm not going to be going into this thing. But I will say this, it is genuinely impressive. I mean, we all knew it was going to be beautiful. I played Assassin's Creed, I've climbed all over it, but it is absolutely astounding in person. I could spend forever just looking at it and walking around. It's truly wonderful, but the line to get in, that's not for me. And a pretty fun fact for you, the baptistry right across from it, well, that was a surprise. In the Assassin's Creed game, to keep the polygon count low, they actually cut it so that they can put more emphasis on the cathedral. So I had no idea this was here. It's lovely. There's a pretty consistent and very accurate joke about European cities. How there's always one lovable old bridge and one detestable new bridge. One of beauty and one of necessity. And I'll tell you what, that has indeed been true in most of my travels, but Florence really proves the rule. There's these two bridges in my eye line right now. They might be next to each other, but they couldn't be further apart if they tried. But yeah, I suppose as we finally cross the lovable old bridge, Ponte Vecchio, I should out myself as a dork yet again, because Florence has been on my bucket list for nigh on 15 years now, and sure, that's not really the most unique thing. Most people want to come to Italy for the food, for the art, for the culture, but I've always wanted to come here ever since I played Assassin's Creed 2. I mean, at the beginning of the game, our protagonist of the entire Assassin's Creed 2 trilogy gets into a schoolboy tussle right here.
Buonasera, Vienna. We were just talking about you.
I've always wanted to come here, so this is kind of a dream come true. And if that resonates with any of you guys at home, then hit me up in the comments. Let me know that I'm not alone. And you definitely are going to want to subscribe, because over the next couple of days, we're going to be going to so many sites from that game, including the epitome of my childhood dreams. We're staying in Monteriggione, and I could not be more excited.
It is really crowded though. I don't want to be like that American who's always like, this would be nice if it wasn't crowded, and then like I'm the one making it crowded, but that is kind of how I'm feeling right now. And there are a lot of Italian school children. This is like a rite of passage in Italy, like every kid goes on a school field trip to Florence. It's kind of weird that they're only selling jewelry. Also, it's so pretty on either side. The River Arta looks so nice. This is probably the most lovable old bridge I've been to in Europe.
But now, before we dive into the museums, there's one thing I want to do first, and that's to get my bearings. And when you come to a new city, I think the best way to do that is climb up high and get a good vantage point. And I don't know about you, but I can't think of a better vantage point than the Torre di Arnolfo. It'll cost you about €12.50 to go inside, which I think is on the steep side for what you get. But that being said, I didn't come all the way to Florence to not visit this tower. I don't know what I was thinking when I was envisioning going to this highest point, but it's a lot of stairs. Really, really beautiful and thematic stairs though, so all is well. I'm just glad I had coffee before I came here. I really need to be awake to get up this thing. And to think what 14-year-old me would think if he knew one day I would be standing in the prison cell, or at least the prison cell they would model it after, where Giovanni Auditore would be wrongfully imprisoned. I didn't even think this place was real back then, and here we are. I would not want to climb up here from the outside though. That bit is a bit fanciful. The stairs were hard enough. I don't want to do any free climbing on this tower. So depending on who you ask, the next suggestion may or may not be off the beaten path, and that is the Santa Maria Novella Apothecary. Supposedly the longest continuously operating apothecary in the world, and got a pretty humble exterior and a very extra interior. It looks beautiful, it smells wonderful, so let's get inside. This place is stunningly beautiful, that's for sure, but it's not a real apothecary anymore, or perhaps it's the realest one in fact, because you cannot buy real medicine, there's no ibuprofen, it's just stuff that smells really, really good, which I guess is historically accurate. I didn't really think I was going to be persuaded to buy anything. I don't exactly buy a whole lot of perfume or smelly candles, but I am reminded that the soap in the hotel is terrible, and the soap here is fantastic, so they've got me. I'm going to get some good smelling soap. Though if your arrival coincides with that of a tour group, this place will get really busy and not so peaceful real quick. I, however, have been pretty lucky so far, and we're leaving right as the traffic jam begins. You know, I actually really enjoyed that. I didn't really expect to get anything, but you guys know I can't be trusted, and so yeah, I ended up getting a little bit of soap. Though I'm sure I'll appreciate that later. Like I said, hotel soap was terrible. And Camille's gonna make us do a pit stop at the tacky candy store. Shockingly, it wasn't me. It was her idea. All right, pit stop over. Let's get back on track. All right, so next up it's time to do something proper touristy, and I've really ummed and ahed over whether or not I wanted to do this or whether or not I'd include it, but here we are at the Academy Gallery, made of course most famous for the fact that it has the statue of David that I'm sure you're all very familiar with. I can't tell you if it's worth it, we're just about to head in, but what I can tell you off the bat is that you really need to reserve your tickets online. The lines are massive, but we snagged ours online already, and so we've made it past the lines and through the doors in less than 35 seconds. Who could ask for any more than that?
I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now. I did not know this museum had this many Stradivari instruments, and I'm especially excited for the Stradivari viola coming up. I'm a violist, by the way. I don't know if I've said that on this channel before, or if it's obvious from my personality. My favorite thing to do when I go to these old violin and viola museums is to actually look at the back of the instrument. That might not be the most obvious place to look, but the type of wood they use usually produces this really beautiful sort of tiger striping situation. It's really obvious on this one right here. And I think over there is the Stradivarius viola that I came here to see. I'm kind of starstruck right now. It's so cool. It's so fat though. This was made for like a huge man. And of course the back is really pretty, but look how short and fat the neck is. I'm glad that we've updated violas since then. And this one was made
1690.
In 1690, out of spruce and maple wood. Oh, I'm so happy. We can leave now. Screw David.
No, but they have 3D printed busts. I really want to go see those.
Something for everyone.
So what do I think? It took us about 2.5 hours to get all done and dusted with it. Was it a good use of time and money? I'm not so sure. I think what's really important to me is that you need to travel with your hobbies. So if you don't really love ancient statues, old instruments or anything like that, well, you're probably just best to skip it. A lot of people act like these things are required viewing, and I just couldn't believe that less if I tried. But considering Camille really loves old instruments, I love old statues, yeah, I think it was a good use of our time. But I can't speak for you. And don't feel pressured either way. Now, we're not done with museums yet. I mean, this city is rich with museums, but I might be all art museumed out if you ask me. So let's have a bit of a change, let's mix it up by going to the Galileo Museum, all about the beginning of modern physics, and I am super excited. Not only will it be so tonally different than everything we've seen so far, but man, those early scientific instruments had some drip. Love the way they looked. Something about still having to use gold, brass, and wood. This looks fantastic, even if maybe they were a little less precise.
This museum is one of the world's major collections of scientific instruments, and also hammers home how important Renaissance Italy was to the study of physics. My favorite part of this museum was the navigation section, and the beautiful, yet flawed maps these scientists created. It was very educational, and also kind of fun to see how wrong some of these old maps were. Now, much like what Ben said earlier, it's really important to travel with your hobbies. I've noticed a lot of weird pressure to visit specific museums in major cities, so don't feel like you have to see this or any museum for that matter. Your trip to Florence can be complete with or without these museums depending on who you are. So I'll be honest, we went here because our friend is an astrophysicist and he got a ton out of it, but if we were traveling alone, I'm not so sure I would have gone. I'm just not a sciencey person. It's not one of my hobbies. This museum can be a little dense, the collection a bit daunting if not completely perplexing at times, but for the right person, it's fantastic. And at the end of the day, I'm glad I went.
And speaking of traveling with your hobbies, anybody familiar with the channel, especially with my Turkish series, will know that, well, I have recently discovered a passion for amphitheaters. And so of course I couldn't resist taking a short bus ride, maybe about 35 minutes from Firenze to, what was it?
Fiesole.
Fiesole. One tip for the bus though, don't forget to validate your ticket. We bought our tickets from the supermarket, we forgot to validate them on the bus, and they hit us pretty hard with a €40 fine, so don't make the mistake I did. Now you know better, I didn't. The archaeological park is really cool. I mean, again, if you've watched any video from that Turkish series, you know how much I love these. But two big differences between at least this one and all the ones in Turkey are, firstly, so many school kids, but that's just been Florence, just infinite school children here on trips. And two, it's just so much more lush, beautiful and green. We're up on the hills. I like it here. So let's keep walking around. Let's dodge our way around those tour groups and see some cool ruins. And besides just having wonderful ruins and a little museum, it's also a fantastic olive grove. I love those too. So in this sun, with these views, I'm well happy. And luckily this whole complex is extensive enough that even though there are indeed many school children tour groups, I've still got plenty of peace and quiet. And by visiting this originally Etruscan temple, that's yet another ancient civilization we can mark off my bingo card. In fact, this right here is said to be the Etruscan altar. Now, naturally, when the Romans took over, which of course they did, they left the Etruscan altar and simply built a bigger one right next to it. A weird show of power, I suppose? And I'll tell you one more thing. I cannot get over these Tuscan hills. It's beautiful here. And it's always a good day when you can go by an intact stone arch, at least if you ask me. One last thing to see here before we leave is of course the museum, and I'll admit, I am pretty museum fatigued from yesterday. I would not want to see a big collection. But the museum behind me is nice and small. It did cost a few extra euros to go, so I was kind of umming and ahhing, but what really sold me on it was not just that they have all the artifacts they've excavated in the area, but they also have a really wide-reaching Hellenistic pottery collection. Probably one of the best I've ever seen. Still, not crazy extensive, but the pieces they have, exquisite. So for me, I think it was well worth it. And I think that will about do it for Florence, as admittedly, I'm only really making a pit stop here during my grand Tuscan adventure. For as much as I love cities, what I really want to do is get out into the countryside and find as many gems as possible. But what do you think? How did I do summing up this wonderful, beautiful, and very busy city? We've been to some great museums, visited epic promenades fit for an assassin, and I even managed to scratch my itch for antiquity. I don't really think this could have been a more jam-packed weekend if I tried. So if this has been helpful to you, give it a like, hit me up in the comments with any questions that you might have, and of course, subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our adventures.